What's up, everybody, and welcome back to A Beer a Day with TK. It's 1 week before the Super Bowl. I got my Eagles jersey on. This is going to be a long week for me, waiting for this game. In the meantime, I figured I'd knock out a few beer videos. So the one I have today is going to be Big Oyster Brewing. These guys are out of Lewes, Delaware, and this is called Shuck Oyster Stout. Now, I don't think that I've done an oyster stout on the program thus far. Seafood is not something that I'm a big fan of. It tends to be too salty for me, and I really don't care for salty things. That being said, if you mix in a little bit of seafood briny saltiness with a stout, I could probably live with it. So, let's see what we have on this one. This was sent out to me. I believe this was sent by Wayne Allen. So before I start, big thanks to Wayne. Check out his new channel. It's called Bucks County Beer Reviews. So I'll throw a link up top. You can see what he's got going on. Wayne has been a big supporter of the BrewTube community for a long time and is doing his own videos. So check him out. Give him a like and a subscribe if you can. Like I said, this year 6.2% ABV, 44 IBUs. There was an interesting little paragraph here on Beer Advocate, and all the Untappd had it as well. It says, Oyster Stout is an ode to our name, Big Oyster Brewery. Historically, Oyster Stout began in the late 1800s when brewers found out that the shell of an oyster is packed with calcium carbonate, which could be used to purify and improve the beer while brewing. So that's kind of interesting. We at Big Oyster are keeping this tradition of Oyster Stout alive by adding our own spin on it to make this beer a rich and roasty, sweet stout brewed with locally harvested oysters. Hints of dark chocolate and toasty bread will satisfy even the most sophisticated taste buds. Now, I don't have the most sophisticated taste buds, but they do okay. So let's give this bad boy a shot. I'm going with my Winking Patriot glass here today. And this has got Ben Franklin on it, and it says, beer is living proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy. I couldn't agree more. So let's check this bad boy out. Ooh. This thing looks viscous pouring out of the can, man. That's oil. It's a nice looking beer. Now, I know a lot of guys go with the hard pour. I don't mind a hard pour, but I try to avoid it just because it takes too long for the head to settle when I'm doing videos. So, I know on the bottom here there was a canned date, so it says 9/28/22, so now we're February 23, so it's probably been about 5 months or so. Give them shell, it says, instead of give them hell. Kind of interesting. All right, let's give it a taste. Oh, before we go, the can is kind of cool. It has those oysters on it, so if you've ever seen oysters in person, they kind of have an iridescent kind of shine or shimmer to them, and I think they captured it quite nicely on this can. I don't know how well it'll show up if I take a photo or on the video, but it is quite neat looking. Now let's get to this beer. This is dark as night. I'm holding it up to the soft light up here. I can't see a thing through this. So this is opaque and dark as can be. As far as color, if I break out my Brew HQ SRM chart, I'm going to the top. This is 40 plus. This is completely dark. As far as the head's magnificent. I got two nice fingers here. I still got a bit left in the can. This is kind of like a nice tan color, big frothy head. It's sitting there. It's breaking up a little bit in the islands, but this is persistent. It's not going anywhere. It's a magnificent looking thing to have on this nice Sunday afternoon. Give it a sniff. Just getting over a head cold, so I'm not 100%, but I can pick up the scent. Kind of get roasty grain. It's kind of subtle. Maybe a slight coffee smell. But that's it. Not a really strong nose. So I guess let's give it a taste. See what this bad boy tastes like. Cheers. First thing, kind of odd. Given how it poured, it looks so viscous. It's a little bit on the thin side. It's not light. I'd say it's probably medium bodied, but I was expecting maybe a little bit fuller of a body to this. As far as flavors, I think you definitely get a nice roasty grain. There's a fair amount of bitterness to it. It almost tastes like what I would associate with a coffee bitterness. I'm not the biggest coffee fan in the world, as you probably all know. But you do definitely pick up an underlying coffee bitterness. You get the roasty grain, roasty malt kind of thing. And I suppose you get the dark chocolate if you think about that like bitter kind of chocolate taste. It's not a sweet milk chocolate, more like a dark bitter chocolate. I think you could pick that up. Maybe that's part of the underlying bitterness as well. Now, the one thing that's kind of thrown me off a tiny bit, because this is an oyster stout, I was expecting kind of a big briny, salty kind of flavor, and you really don't get that at all. There is something else going on in here, and I almost can't place it. But it is like a different kind of taste. I wouldn't say that it's salty, but maybe it's vaguely reminiscent of something like that. It adds another dimension to it, so you definitely get the bitterness. You don't really get much sweetness in this. You pick up the roasty grain, and then maybe like a slight bit of something else that I guess I'll chalk up to the oysters. Like I said, I'm not a huge oyster fan. I don't eat them raw or cooked or in any form, so I can't really say what a raw oyster tastes like. They kind of look like boogers to me, so I wouldn't eat one, but to each their own. If you want to eat that, it's cool. I always thought, like, who was the first dude to eat an oyster? He must have been on an island somewhere starving to death, saw a bird drop one and then come down and eat the inside of it. Because if I cracked open an oyster, the last thing in the world my brain would say is, let's eat this thing. But people eat them. They actually pay quite a bit of money for them. So I guess they are quite popular after all. The only other thing, bit of a dry finish to this after you kind of drink it and let it sit there for a minute. But that's about it. All in all, not a bad beer. The big knock on it to me would probably be the body's a bit thinner than I'd expect on a stout. But other than that, pretty solid. Ratings-wise, it does pretty good. Untappd 3.79, Beer Advocate 4.2. So for the style, I would say it's probably pretty on point for what you're expecting. Again, I don't really have oyster stouts that frequently, so my frame of reference is somewhat limited. But as far as would I drink this beer again, the answer is yeah. I would have another one of these, no problem. So Big Oyster Brewery out of Lewes, Delaware. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Lewes, Lewes, Delaware. Big thumbs up. I would definitely have another one of these. And thanks, Wayne, for sending this. Again, be sure to check out his channel, Bucks County Beer Reviews. Hey, if you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. Hit that like button. If you want to see more videos like this, please hit subscribe. And as always, you got any comments or questions, jump in down below. Have you had Shuck It from Big Oyster Brewery? Maybe you've had another oyster stout. Maybe I need to broaden my horizons and try a few more of these. Now, I have to say, I don't really see them on the shelves that frequently. So I'm glad that Wayne sent this one to me because I don't think I would have run into one otherwise. So, hey, till next time, cheers. Go Birds.